The 9001 Podcast.
Do you really believe your own hype that much? I am the hype!
Hey everyone, welcome to the 9001 Podcast. Today is March 15th, 2015. My name is Wilson, and I'm joined today in person by Randall. Heyo. And not in person by Lane.
Heyo.
So today's show may be a bit shorter than our usual time, but Randall and I will be bringing you some fresh news from South by Southwest Gaming, which we were at this past weekend. So let's do this. Our rapid fire section is to aim to tell you what we're doing in 30 seconds or less, usually in terms of games. I think this week we're all playing games. I was reading a book the other week. I'm still reading that book. It was good. It's a BioShock book by John Shirley. You should check it out. So, anyway, this week I am playing Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate. First of all, that game is particularly hard to get in physical form.
Is it?
Yeah, I don't know why. I think it just was a wild success and the retailers weren't expecting it. So they just didn't have the supply.
Yeah, I definitely
so anyway,
about that.
If you are looking for it, I managed to find a copy on Newegg, which was great because they don't charge tax in most states, outside of, I think, California and two other states that are slipping my mind. But anyway, Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, really fun game, a lot of rich systems. If you enjoy Monster Hunter, this is kind of the best the franchise has to offer, and if you're just getting started, this is a great title. Especially if you have the new Nintendo 3DS in hand. So, that's Monster Hunter 4. You should check it out if you want to kill monsters and wear them on your body.
Right.
Alright, so we'll pass it on to me. I've still been playing some Hearthstone this week. I've been watching whatever little tournaments they've been having. Pretty cool. Getting to see all these cards I don't have. You know, just doing what I can with what I have. Doing pretty good. I'm like rank 13 right now. Have a good time with it. If you don't know what it is, it's Blizzard's card game. All digital. You can play it for free or pay for some of it. You kind of need to pay for some of it if you want to be competitive. And yeah, that's pretty much it. There's not much to say else about it.
I hope everybody would know what it is at this point. Jeez.
Yeah.
I've been playing some GTA 5 online. They dropped the heist update for online, so I got some of my friends here together, and we've been heisting. We already completed all the heists, and now we're going through and trying to get all of the elite challenges, which are hard as balls. And yeah, it's been pretty fun. It's a good ride.
So you're rolling in the munds?
Yeah, actually, I think they give out a little less than I would have actually liked, which is me just being an ass, pretty much. But, like, essentially the last heist you do is a big bank heist, right? And like, all the other heists leading up to it are around the 400 to 500,000 mark. And that's not how much you get, that's how much you split it between all four of you.
Oh.
And the last heist is supposed to be $1 million that you split up between the four of you. And then you walk outside the bank, and every time you take a bullet, you lose $1,000 or something like that. So.
Jeez, that can go quick.
It went down to 500,000 by the time we were at.
Oh man.
And, I mean, of course, that's our first run through, so it was really hard. We had to restart a lot of times on the last part of the first run through because, I mean, we didn't know what we were doing, and we were getting killed, and we were like, Jesus! So, but, I mean, successive run throughs got better. It's gonna be easier next time around. But, you do get bonuses for doing it like the first time. You get an extra 100K, and then you get $1 million for doing them all in order with the same people, and then you do $1 million for getting them, a certain way. So there's good bonuses here and there, but the actual payouts for them, not as high as I would have liked, but that's me just being an asshole pretty much.
And, I'm sure they're trying to make it so people can't abuse it too much, right?
Yeah,
since it's all repeatable.
Exactly. Yeah, it's repeatable. It does have a time cooldown, but, I mean, the things take like 3-4 hours. I mean, I think the last one would probably take you 3 hours doing it as fast as possible. Because, I mean, it's 5 setup missions, which are just basically normal missions, and then the last heist. And each of the setup missions is going to net you like 20K. So you end up walking out with an extra 100,000 from the first stuff, and then everything at the last. But, yeah, still, it's not easy, and yeah. It's been a lot of fun, though. We've had a good time with it.
Interesting. So this will be something they continue to do in terms of content, or is this kind of a
really
one-time
hoping so. GTA, and I've been thinking about this recently, GTA has been really good, and I don't know whether this is because they weren't done with stuff when they released the game, or they just decided to. They've been releasing little content updates here and there ever since the game's come out. You probably noticed one or two sitting around on a news website and just not realized it. They release small content updates with maybe like a game mode, 3 or 4 new guns, 5 or 6 new vehicles, and a bunch of new clothes out into the multiplayer world. They were doing that maybe like once every 3 months after the game came out. And they took sort of a big break up to heist. So my real curiosity is if they're going to keep going leading up to the PC and after the PC release, which I hope they do. And if they do, if every once in a while they'll throw in an online heist, which is what I think they should do, because this is a great foundation. Like, it felt like it went too fast because there's only really 4 of them. But it's a great foundation. If they add maybe 4 more over the life cycle of the game, this is going to end up being like an excellent remembering point. Like, this is going to be one of the selling points of the game at the end result. So, yeah, it's really good, but they can definitely do more, and I know Rockstar has the ability to do more. They're not stupid, and they're really fun. So, yeah, here's hoping they do more.
Definitely. So, moving over to the release of the week, TSM, which is the League of Legends professional team, ends up winning the first international tournament in a long time for North America, right?
Release, if you know what we mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, they won IM in Katowice, and it's the first international tournament that we've won or that the US or North America, I shouldn't say US, that North America has won in, like 3 or 4 years, which is crazy and awesome. So, congratulations, TSM. Thank you so much for winning. Oh my god.
Yeah, that's insane, and I mean, it looks like they really just wrecked it too. I didn't get to watch the game. I'm just looking at the statistics, but
well, the favorite to win the tournament actually got knocked out by the people that we stopped saying that TSM played in the semifinals. So yeah, the GE Tigers, which everybody thought was gonna freaking take the whole thing. So I'm not really sure why they ended up getting knocked out. They just got outplayed at some portions of their games and ended up losing. But yeah, TSM still played fantastic, and this makes me way more excited for the World Championships coming up, because like, if we have, a team that can at least win a game like this, maybe we can actually put up a fight at Worlds this year. That'd be great.
Yeah, imagine like an NA team going to the finals. I mean, that would
finals?
be insane.
Yeah, dude, that's a step up. So here's hoping, man.
And just to be clear, where are the World Finals being held?
I don't remember actually. Hold on, it's in Europe, I believe.
Was it London? And maybe.
2015 League of Legends World Championship location. Let's see. Going to be held in Europe. Didn't say where specifically.
Maybe they haven't fully announced it.
I think they did. I'm 99% sure they did, because I remember they're doing the same thing that they did last year that pissed so many people off, which was the splitting it up into multiple stages across multiple places. You know what? You might be right. It doesn't.
Yeah, I think they just announced it as Europe so far.
Yeah.
It's kind of.
But they will be doing it the same split style they did last time, which was, a few games here, and then the finals here, which personally, I think that's awesome, because
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's bridging it to as many places as possible, and especially I do specifically remember when Worlds were coming through last year, that a lot of people in the Asian scene were really happy that Riot was coming through, because if you're not Korea or you're not China, then your scene may not be up to par, and that was kind of remissive for some people. They were kind of sad about that, and so big World Championship coming through, people go and see it. That's going to help your scene. That's going to help get your community together and bring out the players, stuff like that. It's really cool. So I hope they keep doing that as they do them.
Definitely, and I mean, I think it just goes to show, obviously, that the League of Legends scene is a lot bigger than just the NA scene.
Oh yeah.
There are active communities all over the world. So, moving over to the bulletin board, this week we're going to be bringing a little bit of news from South by Southwest Gaming, but first, there are a few more details coming out this week about Mortal Kombat X.
Ooh,
so, got here a list of all the characters that are confirmed so far. Is there any, before maybe we would just run down all the characters, is there any other news that you want to share with everyone, Lane?
Well, they've dropped some story details on us. They actually had a live stream not too long ago where they revealed basically the first, I'd say about 10 minutes of the story, and my boy Johnny Cage is going to be the first character you play as in the story. Super, super stoked for that. It's actually very interesting, because if you play the original Mortal Kombat, it's got an excellent story mode, which pretty much just revolves around cutscenes between fight to fight. Fast forward a few years, and they're doing Injustice. NetherRealm Studios does Injustice, and they have opted to do small sort of some quick time events in between their fights, just to bridge the gap a little bit. Not as good. Definitely didn't work out quite as well as I think they wanted because they were sort of disconnected. They were more like mini games, and they ended up being kind of a pain in the ass more than anything else.
Yeah.
We were watching the trailer, or basically the first 10 minutes of this game, and it's all fighting cutscenes, but you have quick time events during the cutscenes, for attacking this guy or maybe not getting hit. The thing that I was really impressed about is how freaking smooth it looks. It's not the kind where it like slows down the action to, you either get hit or not. It's the kind where it's at full speed.
It's very reactive. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and it looks so smooth. It didn't look like they very rarely did camera cuts to hide, cuts between presses and stuff like that. It was great. It was really action packed, and as far as QTE goes, it looked tops. I was very impressed. And the game just looks good, of course.
And that's got a release date of April 14th, so, it's less than a month out.
Oh, and they also announced Jason Voorhees as one of the upcoming characters after the game releases. But yes.
And if that sounds a little odd, that's Jason from Friday the 13th.
Yeah, Friday the 13th. It's actually going to be the part of a combat pack, which I believe is, it may be 4 characters that are completely non-related to the Mortal Kombat universe. Could be wrong, but that's what I've sort of heard. And if it's not, then he might be the only one, and then a couple others, from the Mortal Kombat universe, like they have done in the past.
I do kind of want to talk about how Goro is a pre-release character. Like if you pre-order it in advance, that you get him, and I really hate that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I really wish people would stop doing that.
It's playing off people like me, and I hate to admit it, but I'm probably going to do it because I love Mortal Kombat to death, and I literally feel like the game's not complete if I don't have him, and that's going to piss me off because this game, more than any other fighting game I've ever seen, is really character dependent in the way that each character is so freaking deep. If you don't have a character, you're missing out on some good content. Like, each character has really distinct, separate playstyles, and not only that, they have separate playstyles times 3 because they all have permutations. And so, God, if I get Goro and he doesn't have permutations, I'm probably gonna be pissed, but that's a possibility, I guess. Anyway, I will actually feel like I'm missing a good chunk of content there if I don't have it. So I hate to admit it, but I'm going to take the risk on this one, and I'll bite the bullet either way. If it totally sucks, it'll be my fault, and that's what it is. But I'm willing to take the risk for that. And they're preying off of people like me or diehard fans. It blows.
And another caveat to the whole Goro thing is that he's available as a pre-order bonus, but he may also be sold later as DLC later after release. Yeah. So
that's fingers crossed. I guess we don't actually know whether or not he will be, but it's a good possibility.
Right. So, outside of kind of our normal folks here on the list, one of the names that's not listed is Liu Kang. So Liu Kang has not been really touched on in terms of what he's going to be doing with MKX.
Yeah, but interestingly enough, there is a resurrection sort of theme going on. I wouldn't say theme, but a couple classic characters have been resurrected for the use of Shinnok, one of the main bad guys in the Mortal Kombat series. So that opens up a whole can of worms there, basically. That's the reason why Sub-Zero is actually alive. In the beginning parts of the game, it seems that we'll have a battle with Shinnok that's not too long after the end of Mortal Kombat 9. And during that, Sub-Zero has been possessed by Shinnok. After that, somehow or the other, Sub-Zero gets freed from that, and since he has been revived, but is just a bad guy, is able to live his own life. And that's when we're going to fast forward in the future. So, I really trust NetherRealm Studios to make a compelling story. Injustice and Mortal Kombat X both had good stories. Mortal Kombat 9. I really enjoyed the Mortal Kombat 9 story. It was really good. And so I completely trust their ability to make this awesome.
Yeah, there's definitely a whole slew of characters with very notable ways to play. So it's going to be, I don't know. I think we're just there are a lot of great fighters coming out lately, interestingly enough.
Yeah.
Yep.
In terms of games.
That's true, yeah.
Should be great.
So, moving on to some other games that we saw this weekend. So, Randall and I actually were out at South by Southwest Gaming, which is part of the South by Southwest Fest in general. But this is held over at the Palmer Event Center in Austin, Texas. And we went out to the event center and checked out a bunch of games, saw the show floor. The event changes every year. It really has a pretty unique feel every year, in my opinion. Kind of depends who's sponsoring the event. And I like it. I mean, it's definitely a kind of an awesome community event in some ways. There's a lot of families out there. But one of the things that was really great and stood out to me this year in particular, above even years past, was just the great indie representation. So just to shoot off a list of names of some of the games that we saw Salt and Sanctuary, White Noise, Hyper Light Drifter, Darkest Dungeon, and The Flame and the Flood, just to name a few. So it was really great, though. I mean, I don't know. Randall, did you have any initial thoughts about Salt and Sanctuary? So this was Salt and Sanctuary is a 2D. It's kind of a Castlevania meets a Souls game.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I wasn't quite familiar with the name, but yeah, the game I definitely remember. I thought it was really good. The animations were probably the best at the show, I think. Which is a kind of weird thing to just nitpick out. But I know that the animations for that game were, I mean, just compelling and like made you want to do those actions, you know?
Right. They were super tight and very visceral, and you kind of need that in a very gritty, gameplay heavy game. You need to be able to see your hitboxes and what they're going to be doing.
Yeah.
So it's a slashy type, and it's interesting to see the Dark Souls type, or a Souls type of gameplay kind of carried over into the 2D realm.
What I'm really kind of interested in is, 2D games tend to be, at least like the new ones tend to be shorter, I guess, right? Kind of like small, fun experiences.
Yeah.
I wonder if this is gonna, it says like, mixed with Dark Souls, and even Castlevania is not that short at that. But I wonder if they're gonna try to go for a longer game, more of something with like, huge replayability where you're trying to get more stuff, new game plus, all that stuff,
Right. Yeah, I think that they're still kind of working on maybe some of the content. The funny thing is the studio, Ska Studios is the name. They're using Mono Game to develop this, which is really interesting. I mean, that's a framework that was used on the Xbox 360. They were old Xbox 360 devs actually in the past.
I guess they're just so comfortable with it.
Yeah, it's definitely just experience based right there.
Right. And the funniest part is that, the game is actually being worked on to be released on the PS4.
Wow.
The studio actually switched from being a Microsoft studio to being a Sony studio after, basically, from what I understand, Microsoft kind of dumped a lot of indies whenever the Xbox One came out.
Interesting.
And they used to be a champion of indies, especially during the golden age of the XBLA. So it's interesting just to see like the perspective of a studio who's actually kind of lived it. And it seems like they have a really good thing going with Sony right now. And I think that, Salt and Sanctuary is a game I'd love to see on the PS Vita. And I talked to the devs about it, and they were like, yeah, we would like to actually bring it out there on the Vita, but it's just a matter of Mono Game being able to support it. And right now, there's like one guy who's working on kind of the code that would make Mono Game work for the Vita to basically port over well. So, kind of hinging on an outside force. And basically, Sony was like, yeah, if you can get it on Vita, that's fine. If not, we'll pay some people to do it. So it seems like, Sony seems like a pretty nice place to work for as an independent game developer.
Is good.
So another game that we saw was White Noise. This game is pretty. I mean, when you see it, it has a very unique art style. I actually got to play it a little bit, but basically it's
What's up?
It's a detective type game. I think they had this crazy long title. They called it like, I think, a story-driven puzzle horror game.
Jesus.
Is that? I think that might be the right way.
That's
story horror-driven game puzzle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is it? What's the premise, or what's the mechanic? What's the kick?
The mechanic. I don't really know what the kick is besides an aesthetic.
It's very Amnesia-like.
Okay, actually,
it's very similar to that.
I'm looking at some screenies here, some screenshots, and it's got 4 people with flashlights in a dark forest, and the last screenshot is of them, or somebody looking at this thing, very muscular and weird looking, that looks like it kind of wants to kill him, and there's white noise around the edge, like white static looking.
Different game.
Different game? What? But this is white noise.
I know, it's called White Noise, so,
I feel like I'm being lied to right now. Because that makes sense.
No, it does make sense. I'm trying to find. Oh God!
It's because there's like a place called White Noise Games, and like there's a few things with that as their title.
All right, right. We might just need to on that for now.
Yeah. So anyway, it's very, very good looking game. But it was hard to get compelled by it. But it seems like the developers are very well rounded. I think I was the creative director. I got to speak with him. He was out on the expo floor, and he actually worked on. He was the creative director on Life is Strange as well, which is a game that's the game that we mentioned on the podcast a while back, which is still hot on my list of to play games. Just haven't gotten around to it.
Second one comes out in like a little over 2 weeks, or a little under 2 weeks, actually.
Next episode.
Yeah, next episode.
Maybe.
Children.
I might light the fire. So another game that we saw is one that's near and dear to Lane's heart, which is Hyper Light Drifter. So, Lane, do you want to kind of pitch Hyper Light Drifter in case someone who's listening hasn't heard it?
Yeah, and please do add if you feel like I'm wrong, because I'm not good at describing these things. But it's how would you describe I guess it's a top-down. It's supposed to be
kind of an isometric.
but it's that's the word I was looking for. Isometric. It's an isometric top-down sort of shooter hack and slash game, and a lot along the line. Or you know what? I couldn't really draw a parallel to anything, I don't think, really, but you're basically running around as a dude, cutting, shooting and cutting. And, it's the only project I've ever backed on Kickstarter, not that that's like a seal of approval or anything, but I was really enthralled by the idea and the art style. It's very, very unique art style, and to its credit or discredit, Wilson said that may give it a little bit of, visual noise, which I can understand. It's got a lot of blues, grays, and blacks, and then some really bright colors occasionally. Like his blades and eyes and blood are really bright colors. So I don't know. What do you think, Wilson?
I mean, that style is like very inherent of like kind of that retro feel, right? Yes, I mean, definitely. That color palette. I mean, if you think about maybe another comparable show or film, for me, I think Akira with that art palette. Right? Yeah. A lot of Akira has like a very similar use of red and really kind of strong accent colors.
To contrast with like darker shades.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But also just a quick throwback. So the name of that game is called White Knight. I apologize.
White Knight? You liar.
Not White Noise. So White Knight, check it out. It's by Awesome Studio, or maybe Awesome is kind of what they're going for. Haha. But it's certainly a puzzler. It's all about you staying out of, obviously maintaining sanity by keeping your matches lit and kind of putting some pieces together about your whereabouts and kind of what to do next.
Interesting.
But it's black and white completely, and it has a lot of strong kind of cinematography going on to really kind of convince you of the noir world.
Interesting.
Or noir. So, anyway, Hyper Light Drifter, I played it. I got pwned pretty hard just because I tried to jump in guns blazing, and then I remember that I can't do that in most games anymore.
Yeah, I've heard it's got a pretty high skill cap.
It's pretty, you definitely have to know what you're doing. It's pretty brutal, and it's designed in such a way that you either learn how to play correctly or at least, in a way that's passable, because you won't be able to cheese everything.
Yeah.
Another game that we saw, which is a game that actually is in early access right now on Steam, is Darkest Dungeon. Yep.
How about that one?
Oh, well, Randall might be able to tell us a little bit about Darkest Dungeon.
Sure, it's a turn-based RPG. Kind of got a gothic feel to it. It's really gritty, permadeath. It's very you get very attached to your characters, try not to lose them, and you will anyway. And then you get new characters. It's mostly, I would say, kind of combat-based and progression-based. It's not much about a crafting system or anything like that.
Yeah.
Trying to progress to like the next part and, dealing with and overcoming the grief of losing characters and the like.
Nice.
Yeah, it's, with the turn-based thing, obviously it comes with its own, can of worms for some people, but it also is kind of a good chance to show off the art style of the game. It has a very, very pronounced kind of 2D look that's almost a bit uncanny.
Like a book, sort of.
Yeah, it does. It does kind of have that storybook look, and it's nice. So you get these randomly kind of generated travelers or adventurers that kind of join your party, and they each have, this randomly generated names, and, they might have better stats than, one thief may have a better set of stats than another thief, etc. So it's kind of neat that, these travelers kind of end up joining your party, and you have to maintain their sanity levels after they go on a long dungeon. So when you get back to town, you may take one of your adventurers and put them in the brothel or the bar and leave them there while you go on your next adventure so that they can restore their sanity. And I think that's interesting, the kind of world building element. And you can also not only just have these interesting structures, you can also upgrade them. So kind of that town metagame also is part of the package.
Yeah, that's really
cool. It's a pretty cool game. It was the devs are really cool. The guy who did the sound for the game actually did the sound for Towerfall.
Oh, nice.
And a few other notable games. He was really cool. His name was Jeff. So
shout out to Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff, if you're listening somehow, thank you.
Somehow, some way. Yeah.
At any rate, the last game I wanted to talk about was The Flame and the Flood.
The Flame and the Flood.
The Flame and the Flood is another Kickstarter success. A lot of these indie games have had, or a few of these indie games have had Kickstarter campaigns. But The Flame and the Flood is a game made by several old Irrational devs. The art director from BioShock and I think Infinite as well, along with a designer and a few engineers from the team, actually got together and decided they were going to do an indie adventure. And this game is basically kind of a 3D survival game. It's not exactly horror. It's set in kind of a fictionalized American South. Think the Everglades in Florida, and you travel on a rickety boat that is actually a car that's been repurposed with a lot of 2x4s. And as you kind of roll down the river on this car boat, you end up, setting anchor or tire at all sorts of different little islands along your way down the river. And I think there's kind of an end. And so I got to play about 10 minutes of that, and so did Randall. It was pretty interesting. Very strong art style. It's made in Unreal 4, so it looks good. It's a 3D game. The materials look nice. But, yeah, I don't know. I thought the gameplay was there, and I wanted to see some more of the systems. Obviously, you'd want to sit down with that type of game, and that's how you get a sense of, crafting systems. You can't just experience that in 5 minutes and say, oh, yeah, that was awesome. There's a progression involved that you have to feel, and I'm sure I'd have to do that to get a full read. And I think the only thing that I really missed out of the game was the sense of narrative. What was the backstory? What was the story being told in general? And I think that they are working on that. That's something that they are trying to understand as well, and they want to have right before they pitch it to anyone. So, Randall, do you have any thoughts from the game?
Yeah, I mean, that's like you were talking about the crafting system, and just the game as a whole, that's something that's really hard to get out of 10 minutes, to really get a good judgment of the game. Obviously, it's aesthetically pleasing. There's no doubt about that. It looks good. Sounds are good. Animations are decent. There's nothing wrong visually. But, when I played the game, it definitely felt a little lacking. Like, they're missing some pizzazz still and direction. And that's just because that was a demo, I think, mostly. Mm-hmm. So it's hard for me to give, a super good, game rating on it. But visually, it was definitely good.
And I guess another game that I think y'all should check out is That Dragon Cancer by Nominous Games. That's an interesting experiential kind of story game, and it actually has to do with the life story of one of the devs and his son. His son actually had terminal cancer, and this game kind of illustrates, the journey of not only the developer and his family going through that, but also the life of the son. It's a really incredible, use of the video game, I think, as a medium, as expression. So anyway, that's a game that it's still in development. It's slated for release on the Ouya exclusively, I think. But I think a Steam release is soon to follow. So anyway, it's another game you should check out, among these we've mentioned. So, moving over to the 9001 discussion, we've been talking a lot about indie games, and South by Southwest Gaming does this thing, which is called the South by Southwest Gaming Awards, and one of the sections is the gamer's voice. This is awarded to the favorite indie game at the indie corner, decided exclusively by the gamers who are there on the expo floor, which is pretty neat. I think that's a pretty cool, thing to run a little popularity contests, gives the gamers a voice. And, this isn't the first time this has happened, right? Popularity contests with games have existed in a lot of shapes and forms, and I think it's something that we should talk about because video games are pretty, I think, hard to rate quickly.
Yeah.
There are certain things about a game that may make you despise it or absolutely love it that you won't find out until you've really sat down with it. And at the South by Southwest Gaming Expo, one of the things I noticed was that speedrunners, well, here's the cat out of the bag, but speedrunners won the award. First of all.
Yeah, and if you don't know, Speedrunners is a very arcadey style game where you basically race other players up to 4, on foot, different, abilities, very just fun, nothing, I'd say is revolutionary, but just a good game is, how I would describe it. And you run around the map, jump over buildings and stuff, hook onto things kind of like Spider-Man, if you can imagine it, and swing from building to building, things like that.
Right, definitely a great party game and a great game to play with friends and a great game that's very well suited for an expo floor. And this isn't to undermine any achievement with Tiny Machine or the game itself. I think that the game is a lot of fun. I have played it at a few gatherings, and it's definitely inspired a lot of chaos in the same vein as Towerfall or another kind of party game. But I think it's interesting because some games, were not receiving a lot of attention on the expo floor, but the people who were playing them had a lot of fun. I just think it's interesting to see these kind of voting contests play out because the Speedrunners tent was also very close to the voting station.
Yeah. A little too close.
So I just think it's interesting to see kind of how this works. But, do you think that having kind of like this type of award show or this award at South by Southwest Gaming, is that the right way to do it? With the voting populace can only vote on the expo floor?
It's it's buying votes, sort of. You're definitely gonna leave more impressions on people who are close to the voting stuff and such like that. Obviously the people from Speedrunners came there to win or knew someone there, and so they got placed close. So it's them. If I were them, it would be me trying to win so I could have a bit of publicity that I wouldn't have otherwise. Obviously that's great free publicity. You go there, you bring what you normally do, and you might just get an award and a lot of praise for it. And, some people are going to find out about it that didn't know before. So it sounds to me, like from what you're describing, it sounds like they came there to win, that's their decision. If they want to do that, they can do that.
Right. Well, I don't know how exactly the booth setup was determined either.
Yeah.
But, by the way, it's Tiny Build Games is the company working on Speedrunners. Okay. But, yeah, there are a lot of games entered in here. Among the other games that I saw, Gemini was a game that was very visually appealing. It kind of reminded me of Flow, if you've ever played that. Just a lot of nice particle effects, making me feel very good about myself on the screen. So,
I think the big issue, I think it's great that, you get to vote for, like, your favorite game. I think that's good, right? Everyone should get to voice their opinion, and it's nice to recognize someone that's made a good product. I don't see anything wrong with that initially. But, like, having it where you can only vote on the booth floor, especially when all these demos are only going to last 10 minutes, a game like Speedrunners is one that you can absorb like that, right? You can play one game and get the full sense of it and know exactly what it is. A game like Darkest Dungeon, you're not going to get much out of that 10 minutes, not like you will the Speedrunners, and it's not going to leave as big of an impression. So, you get off that Speedrunners game, you've got that player's high, and you're just having a good time. That guy's like, yeah, dude, go vote for us in here, and you're like, yeah, man, for sure. And then, so you go vote on it, dude, because you're so hyped up on Mountain Dew, you don't know what to do.
What the fuck?
Oh my goodness.
Anyway,
Mountain Dew, huh?
I think that's like the issue with only being able to vote in person, as where if you could vote at home and, say, as for me, like, I have Darkest Dungeon on early access, right? And I've played it some. If, someone could go back, and they decide to get the early access or whatever and play it, or, they get time to think about other games more or look up more stuff about other games, they might choose another game. And, if they could submit it online, they'd feel no rush to, vote for anybody, right?
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it's definitely harder and it's riggable,
Yeah,
but like,
that's-
I mean,
yeah,
why would
that's
you rig
why they
something like that anyway? It's so minimal. I mean,
It's a popularity
Right.
contest, which is the bottom line. It's made to be a popularity contest.
yeah.
Because, I mean,
Right,
if it's not, then I don't know. What else is it if it's not a popularity contest?
Certainly, and I guess that just goes to show that there is a good kind of there's some very valid reasons why you would leave it to only the expo floor, and one of those is so that it couldn't be rigged. Well, to a degree, right? You can
Yeah.
still have bodies coming in and voting to their heart's content.
Yep.
But this does change the playing field. Most online voting systems are typically, manipulated just to a small degree, if
Yes.
not a larger degree. So anyway, yeah, I really like South by Southwest Gaming. The Gamer's Voice is a really interesting award to have at the show. I think that in general it's worthwhile. And I think that certain games, just by the way of how they play, are going to be better suited for the masses.
Yeah.
And I think that this is I think the name of the award is very indicative of I guess what I'm trying to say is the prize is that you are loved by the gamer. It's not necessarily that you're the best game there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not best in show or anything like
Yeah.
that.
And
So-
that's,
Definitely.
I guess the gamer's voice, I don't know, it's not really misleading, but I was talking to you about this kind of offhand when we were starting. You said gamer's voice, and I was like, gamer's choice? No, gamer's voice. Oh, that's interesting. Because, I mean, if I had a choice there, it'd be gamer's choice. Because, I mean, yeah, it's your voice, but that's the same thing as saying it's your choice, I guess. It's sort of redundant, and I mean, I think the clarification of you guys literally chose this. It's not your voice. You literally chose this as your game of choice. I prefer that clarification, as minor as it may be.
Oh my goodness.
I'm kind of guessing they did it to be a little different than like, People's Choice Award, things like that.
Yes,
to
exactly.
keep the separation there. I'm pretty sure that's why they chose the voice thing as opposed to choice.
And then, yeah, and that's exactly what I think as well. And that's the only reason it kind of bothers me, is because that's probably why they did it, just to be different. But more power to them.
Different.
Yeah, you're different.
Well, at any rate, there were a lot of great games at South by Southwest Gaming. It's a great, completely free event. So if you're ever near Austin and you want to come get some great indies, this is not exactly really a networking event, but you can certainly meet some developers and get your name out there if you are looking to, meet some people and get their story. Everybody likes to talk about, how they got to where they were and give some advice when they can. But I mean, even if you're just a gamer that enjoys seeing what is out there, this is a great event. I think that South by Southwest Gaming is comparable to PAX South, and it's completely free. So,
Yeah, you calling somebody out there, buddy?
not completely, but I'm just saying that you could go to South by Southwest Gaming completely free.
Yeah, it's definitely more established, so it's not that way. You've certainly gotten that going at this point.
Right, and the game changes every year for South by Southwest Gaming, if you will. I mean, last year the whole thing was sponsored by Nintendo. They had Mario Kart 8, real life demo. You could actually go Mario Karting, although the press kept getting in front of everybody in line. So that didn't happen for me. But anyway, it's a fun event. So if you're ever near town and you want to brave the South by Southwest traffic, you should come out and see what South by Southwest Gaming has to offer. And on that note, I think we will close out the show. Thanks for tuning in this week. Please feel free to shoot us any questions or comments to 9001podcast@gmail.com. You can find the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, and our website, 9001rad.io. And we also have a YouTube channel, so if you want to watch on YouTube, you can do that too. Until next time, this has been the 9001 Podcast.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Are you getting stingy on me now?
Oh, dude, Jesus, what?
Well,
We say shorter show and then we run 40 minutes.
We be seeing
God.
you later.